Welcome to From the Ashes, the Dungeon Crawler Network podcast all about Ashes of Creation by Intrepid Studios. Bear witness to the rebirth of the MMORPG genre from the ashes of an industry that has left the gamers behind. I'm Aggelos, founder of the Dungeon Crawler Network, and we are coming to you live from the Mighty Beard Tavern, and I am joined by my amazing co-host, Stormslord. How are you?
Oh, doing fantastic this week. How about you?
Amazing. We got a lot of fun stuff to talk about, and someone who's joining us, of course, is Alpha Soul.
Great to be here. Great to be here.
Awesome. And of course, the guy who just shows up and likes to talk, Crowjack.
I'm going to need a lot more coffee to be appropriately hyped for this topic this week.
You got it. You got it. You got it. Because this show is going to be a lot of fun. We have so much to go over. It's actually insane, the amount of news we got this week, and it's so cool. We got some news about the newest Ashes of Creation Apocalypse test. That'll be coming up shortly. We're going to go over some live stream details from the most recent live stream that they had. And of course, there was a blog post that dropped overviewing castle sieges.
Not important. That's not important.
No one cares about that, right? Can we just end the show then?
Yeah, it's our
good.
PR.
Thank you all for being here. We're done for today. We'll see you next week, next Thursday.
Indeed. But before we jump into all of that, I gotta say a special thank you to all the people who support us over at patreon.com/Dungeon Crawler Network, as well as the amazing Shield Walls who are subs over here on twitch.tv/Dungeon Crawler Network. You guys are amazing. Thank you so much for helping support the network and everything we do here. You help keep the metaphorical torches lit and these shows coming to you each and every week. And of course, everyone who supports the network in that way, in one of those two ways, gain access to all of our shows at least 24 hours early. And of course, our patrons get access to our after party, after show, after it's released. So there you go. There's a reason to do it. After show, after party, after it's released. There you go.
Got it.
Valid.
Anyway, yeah. Oh, and we also, if you want to help support the show, you can do so by leaving us a 5-star review on iTunes so people know that we are a real podcast, that we say real words. Sometimes they matter. And we actually got a new one from Sweden. Thank you so much. I'm not even going to try to pronounce the name. We actually tried in the pre-show to pronounce the name, and I think we all gave up. But it's Ahieie. Thank you so much for leaving us a review. They say, thanks for your podcast on YouTube. I watch it every week since episode 10. Love it. Keep up the good work. Sweden and the EU are watching. Thank you so much for leaving those reviews. It's nice to know that we are being heard all the way over in Sweden, which is pretty sweet. And while I generally don't address chat in the podcast, yes, I see his face every single time I mention Shield Wall. Every single time. You wonder why I've been saying it a lot more.
Every time.
Every time. All right, guys, let's go ahead and jump right on into the news. First up, we have a new Ashes of Creation Apocalypse test. It is not happening this weekend, but is actually going to be happening on Thursday, June 24th at 10 a.m. Pacific and going all the way to the 27th at 10 p.m. Pacific time. So there's going to be a week buffer in there before we actually get our hands on APOC again.
Well, they want to do that so that they could triple the fall damage numbers this time around, right? And make sure that if you fall one story, you're instantly dead. You got to make sure to get those numbers perfect for the next test. That's why they need the extra week in there, just to really hammer home those fall damage numbers.
I seem to remember a specific stream where a man might have jumped off something, a castle, I think it was, and literally...
Dude, the low-hanging castle ledges that had chests on them, I fell and took 80 damage.
Hold on.
Damn.
We have to set the entire scene here. There's a person, we'll call him Crowjack, just so everyone, just as a name.
It's not Crowjack.
No, not Crowjack. We'll say, so he's flying down. He's like, I'm going for the castle. I'm going to have to get ready for a fight. He lands. There's not a single person in this castle. I get to loot everything all to myself. This is amazing. Oh, I'm going to go. Clunk, fell, dead. Literally one of the very first people to die in that match.
In the patch notes, they mentioned tweaking the fall damage numbers. They over-tweaked them hard. Yeah. Anyways.
Yeah.
It was incredibly funny. And in fact, I believe some people have some clips of that scene.
Probably.
Yeah.
Probably.
It was a good one.
Right.
It was a good one to watch, and it was rather humorous. So anyway, that test will be coming, so be prepared to jump into that. Now, this does lead a question that, I'm starting to wonder. We haven't really heard anything new about Castle Siege testing. I don't think it's going to actually happen in January.
I would like to bring everyone's attention to the wording in the blog regarding the weekend testing, that it said apocalypse testing, not battle royale testing, just apocalypse testing, leaving it beautifully vague in case it's ready in time, or not in case it's not ready in time.
That's true. I noticed the same thing. Yeah, it'll be interesting. If they don't do it that weekend, then obviously they don't hit January. So
Yeah, exactly. So that's the final weekend, right? So if it's ready, it's ready. Great. If it's not, they didn't make any promises. Well, they kind of did. The end of January, hopefully.
yeah,
Right. I have a feeling, and we'll be getting into it, of course. They did show off a video of the testing, or not the testing, but of the Castle
environment.
Sieges, and not having any characters running around. And I know during the live stream they had mentioned, and we're getting into the live stream news now, they had mentioned that they're not ready to show that yet because it's not yet refined. That makes me think if they're not ready to show it on the public stream, it's probably not ready for the testing yet, which is fine, but I wouldn't get your hopes up that you're going to see that testing in this coming week. Anyway, some of the tidbits from the live stream that we'll go over is Intrepid is still working with My.com and Mail.ru to get the accounts set up and running, because My.com will be handling all the EU accounts that don't want to register directly over here in the NA and play on the NA servers. That is still a thing that isn't up yet. So if you're trying to get your game from My.com, it's not working. None of the accounts are working currently. So that is still on the thing. They are hiring a new, or they're just hiring a senior community manager, because it was something that we had stressed early on in the show, or when we first found out that Margaret is not a community manager. She's a community marketing lead. So they will be hiring a new senior community manager, and there will be an announcement coming out for that soon. So that'll be exciting. That person will probably be the one who has to deal with all the trolls in Discord. I feel like it's time to do the Hunger Games scene.
The Purge.
Everyone has to salute for that. Good luck.
Yep.
yep.
We, of course, got patch notes. Let's talk about patch notes for a little bit, because that's actually something that was really neat, and I know Crojack actually mentioned it early on. I love digging into patch notes, and now they're available.
I'm happy that we have patch notes. I'm unhappy that they're not comprehensive.
Explain.
Right? They have some vagaries in them, mentioning, for example, in the second patch where they tweaked the fall damage, and then they said they nerfed the dot damage of the Bone Smasher, but didn't give us any specific numbers. And in the patch notes, they did not mention the fact that you can no longer lunge 3 times through the air, nor can you lunge while free falling. So things were not in the patch that I felt were critical to gameplay. So it's good. We got lots of really cool information, but they weren't comprehensive. They weren't complete.
Let's roll that back a little bit. I just want to talk about that a little bit. I noticed you said you can't lunge in mid free fall. That annoyed me.
Me too.
Like,
it was a survival mechanism to prevent fall damage.
oh yeah, and I'm not saying I didn't use it. I would use it to get from the floor to the second floor of a building and like through a window.
The triple lunge through the sky?
Yeah, oh yeah. But a part of me hated myself for doing it.
Logically, it makes 0 sense, but it's a lot of fun to play with.
Fair.
It's fun to zip around and stuff like that, but you're right. You can't just lunge through the sky. But then again, this is a magical place with spells that let you jump and go invisible and shoot fireballs. But logically, it looks terrible, and a lot of complaints in my comment section watching gameplay footage complained about that. But man, it was fun.
I think it also gives a little bit of it looks a little disingenuous based on what the MMO will have. Are people going to look at that and go, are you really going to, Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon this thing, or what?
That's true.
Yeah.
That's true.
And honestly, that's the way I looked at it. So, I mean, yeah, it was fun to play with. It was, but I'm glad that was removed.
Yeah, it makes sense. It's one of those things that I'm sad that it's gone, but I get it.
Right. Another big thing right off the bat is they have this is more of a PSA, but if you are participating in any of these tests, they do have a new bug support form, not FOURM, however I spelled it, I don't know. It's a form that's actually now a Zendesk form that'll be easy to submit bugs if you encounter anything. That'll be insanely helpful going forward. And, of course, the last thing is referral data. I'm still missing a ton of referral data. I'm sure Crojack's missing a ton of referral data.
Pretty much everyone in the content creator community is missing referral data.
Yeah.
I'm missing my one. So, yeah.
There you go.
100% gone.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have 100% of my referrals missing.
Jeez.
Yeah. So there you go. All that data is saved. They do have the backup of that. Now, how this is working, and we've mentioned this, I think, on previous show, but we'll re-utter it one more time, is that as of right now, only people who are signing in to the new website actually get added to the referral. So that one referral you have, Alpha, just has no interest in signing in for the game. So
Yeah.
I
don't think they purchased anything either, so.
That doesn't bode well. Anyway, but they're actually going to be migrating all that data over regardless of whether or not they sign in over time, but that'll probably be sometime down the road.
Question: have we received an answer yet whether they're going with the affiliate link or the code or the account name? Nothing
Nope,
on that yet?
Nothing.
Okay.
Nope. I don't
Just
think
curious.
so.
I mean, even if they did, I don't think the website... I did a test account
It doesn't work.
2 weeks ago. Yeah, it doesn't even ask for a code at this
But
point.
it'd be nice to know what direction they decide to go down when they do get around to fixing it. It'd be
yeah.
nice to know.
Then I have
They
to
probably
fix
haven't
it.
decided yet.
Yeah.
Yeah, good point. Maybe they haven't decided yet. Maybe they're debating.
Maybe they don't even have it implemented yet. I mean, obviously
Yeah.
they don't, because they don't even have the ability to add it during,
Whoever
Yeah, the
was
current
doing
system, the code.
this stuff is doing other stuff. So
Yeah.
there's a priority issue there. So
And
gotta
you're-
pick.
Yeah. You're right. I didn't mean to interrupt you there, but you're 100% right. In the totem pole of this, the only people who are really affected are generally content creators, and a handful of
Technically,
people.
no one's affected. We don't get anything until the game's live, and then the first quarter after the game's live. So technically, right this second, no one's really affected that much.
No.
As long as they have it all backed up and stuff.
Yeah, no, as long as it's all backed up. I just meant in terms of actual massive referrals. Most people have already turned their friends onto the game. I know.
Yeah.
I
see what you're going at.
Yeah, I've been preaching the good word of Ashes of Creation since I first learned of it. So most of my real life friends and stuff had already signed up previously. And
Right,
that's
what
how
you're
most
saying
of
is
them are.
content creators that could continue to accrue referrals right now through content are being hurt the most because they can't even use the system right now.
Correct.
Right. That makes sense.
Yeah. All right. Enough of that. We had fun with that. Let's go ahead and move on to a reason why everyone's really here: castle sieges. So
That's why we're here?
That's it.
No, I
It's not
thought-
the free booze.
well,
I was lied to.
we definitely don't get free booze because the bartender never delivers anything.
What do you think I'm drinking?
Speak for yourselves.
Oh,
there you go.
Somebody here doesn't have it, and we're not.
Don't you own the place? Why are you not getting served?
Because I own the place. They hate me. Apparently,
You hate the boss.
isn't that how it always works?
Pretty much.
what I heard.
See? Anyway, all right. So for those of you who are watching us on YouTube, you'll see that we're gonna have the video up that they showed for the Castle Siege overview. It's a nice fly through. For those of you who are listening to us on the RSS channels, iTunes, Stitcher Radio, Google Play, and SoundCloud and Spotify, you'll have to look in the link for look in the description for a link to the actual video if you have not seen it. But it'll be a nice little background kind of showing this off. First off, let's talk a little bit overview of the whole thing, and we'll kind of jump into this. Map size, 1 km by 1 km, 1 kilometer, 1 kilometer map.
It sounds small, but I imagine when you're actually there on foot, it'll feel bigger than that.
Does anyone remember exactly how big the BR map is?
I
Wasn't
think
it?
it's 4x4, is it?
4x4?
Wait, hold on a second.
Well,
Find that number. That's important.
I mean, to
It'll give
be-
us context.
It will give us the context for the people who actually want to get into it. But I can imagine going for a smaller map is fine because you want the action to be there. You
Right.
don't want people spread
You don't
out.
want, if you spawn back here, you don't want a long travel time to get back to the action at the castle, right?
2.5 by 2.5.
That's it.
Yeah.
So it's still a fairly large map
That's-
overall.
yeah.
That's half the size of that map. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
pretty big.
Yeah, roughly half. So
Yeah,
Wow.
That is.
How big's this castle?
That's
How
a
much
big
space
castle.
does it take?
I mean, you can see in the video that's actually playing that the castles are fairly large in size. They look impressive. They really
the
do.
one-
They do.
you know,
There's one that's against that mountain face. It seems like a half moon castle.
I love that castle. That's the
Oh, yeah.
the Lord of the Rings kind of esque one.
yeah.
What is
Helm's
it?
Deep.
Helm's Deep. Yeah, Helm's Deep. Yeah.
Helm's Deep.
But I'm kind of wondering because the castle that's there in the current battle royale, it's pretty freaking big already.
Mm-hmm.
That might be small compared to what we get as far as the castle goes. So
Depends
that'll
how
be
big
interesting.
the castle is versus the map. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Well, some other highlights: map duration or game duration is expected to be roughly about 30 to 35 minutes. And how this works is there's different control points that are going to be spread throughout the map that will change how that's done. So we're going to go into that in a little bit. You'll be able to select a preferred role, but the matchmaker will place you wherever you're needed. So if you want to be defender, you can stick that. But if there's no attackers, guess what? Some people are going to play attackers.
Yeah.
There's different siege weapons that are being available. They're split between attackers and defenders. And you mentioned this, and these are the last two things I'll mention before we kind of jump into the discussion for this. There are two different castle siege maps. The first one you had talked about, Alpha Soul, was the Dwarven Castle from the Dunes and Kill Dwarves, because you got to love them, that will have tunnels and lots of ways to go under, and it's built onto a side of a cliff. The attacker battlefield is against the precipice of the mountain.
That's cool.
Yeah.
That's cool.
And the last one is the Aelin Castle, which is the Aelin humans, the ancient humans, and it is going to be a Valoon-themed castle, the desert-themed.
Mm-hmm.
The neat
One
part...
thing I-
Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Fine. One thing I like about the length of the match, which does increase or decrease based off of things in the game, is that you can sit down and play it and not have to devote too much time to it. Much like the Battle Royale ends in under 20 minutes. Like, that final
Yes.
circle closes before 20 minutes is up. That's neat. You sit down, enjoy the round, and then get one in, then go have dinner, whatever. So a half hour, 35 minutes, that still is long enough to be of consequence and to have actions and things occur in it, but not so long that you're like, oh my God, how long is this going to take? I think it's a sweet spot.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Last little bit of news that I thought was actually really neat on this is that there are 5 castles that will be attended, which we knew are included in Ashes of Creation, the MMORPG, which we knew of, and that they're likely going to be all added into Apocalypse. So we'll be able to actually see how the castles fell in the past for those of you who are lore junkies. I'm really curious if these maps, like, I know they're being designed, but when we actually see these maps, the way I'm reading this is going to be able to give us essentially exact mapping for these castles. Maybe we won't know what's around them,
Yeah.
but they're literally going to take these castles and drop them into the world.
It sounds
Maybe
like
exact. Sorry, go ahead.
no. Go ahead. Good.
I was going to say, maybe exact as they have them now in development. Let's say down the road in development, they take these 2 castles we have now and they go, you know what, let's tweak this, let's tweak this, let's tweak this. And then they'll go back and change it for APOC as they've changed it in the MMO. But you're right, like what we have now could be exactly what's in the MMO map that we've been all waiting to see.
I'd add one thing to that. Oh, go ahead. Good.
No, I'm saying
Someone
hopefully
has to
it's
talk.
exactly the same, right? Because well, to me, it's really interesting. I don't know if they planned this. I don't think they did. When they took the Apocalypse and then turned it into the past prior to the exit, right? To be able to see the castles and everything before that, and then see it when we get back. To me, that's tremendous. Front and back end bookmarking. It's tremendous.
Yeah, that's the big thing to me. I think when we first see the castles, they're not going to be as you see them now. They're going to be a shell of what we see now, and eventually you can build it back up to the state that we're seeing now, or something similar.
That's really
busted
cool.
up, overgrown, plant
Yeah.
life in the castle, trees growing there. There's been thousands of years, right? I would love to see those castles be completely overtaken by nature in some instances.
Is it?
According to what we've been told, thousands of years.
Well,
Yeah.
that's just it. I would imagine thousands of years is probably not enough time to breed an entirely different race, but hey, maybe I'm wrong.
Magic.
Magic.
The cop out
Magic,
for everything.
Magic,
Magic.
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 A wizard did it.
Magic.
I'm not saying magic, but magic.
But magic.
Yeah.
Indeed. All right, that's pretty cool. Now let's go ahead and break down exactly what the castle sieges are. I mean, Crowjack, let's talk about this. Just an
Let's
overview.
talk about this.
Let's talk about this before I get into my notes.
Okay.
This looked really awesome. Like
This looked phenomenal. I'm so excited
It
to play
does.
this. I can't wait.
It looks fantastic.
It's everything you want as a kid when you grew up loving Lord of the Rings and loving those kinds of fantasy books. The attacking the castle, defending the castle, firing trebuchets, flinging spells. It's everything you wanted as a fantasy fan as a kid. It's so cool.
I'm giving you an opportunity just to hype like crazy.
I don't want to get too hype.
Well, let's be clear. Do you like it?
No, I hate it. I hate fun. Fun sucks. Who needs fun in life? No, this is great.
Your excitement for this is my excitement for Horde mode.
Right.
Horde mode is really where, because even with games like World of Warcraft, or not World of Warcraft, but Warcraft 3 and stuff like that, I used to always play those mods in StarCraft and stuff that used to do like Starship Troopers and stuff like that, where you're facing off just against a constant wave and horde. So I just can't wait for that mode. But still, Castle Siege mode is pretty fun.
Big difference for me. Horde mode is players versus AI. We were told maybe at first the players could play the monsters. Now they seem to be coming back from players playing monsters. So right now it's players versus AI. That never interests me personally. I love player versus player stuff. Look at my game history. So this 100 player versus 100 player attack defense thing is like a wet dream for me. I'm so excited.
I'm with Alpha Soul. I
Alrighty
really
then.
like Horde mode.
PvE scrubs.
I'm telling
Enjoy
you.
your Care Bear servers. No, I was kidding. I'm kidding.
He's not kidding.
I know you guys like a balance. It's
But
okay.
not really.
Yeah. No, I like a little bit of everything. Yeah, I definitely like a little bit of everything. But no, Horde mode is something that one of the first raids in WoW that I actually played was Mount Hyjal.
Oh, I remember that one.
Was literally a castle defense where you're like in the and there's just waves and waves of monsters. I love those types of things. Diablo 2, the Mad Cow level, was essentially the same thing. There's these hordes getting stronger and stronger, and I love that style of gameplay. I mean, I don't think it was DayZ, but there was another game that had like a zombie survival mode. It was a first-person shooter. I can't remember.
Call of Duty's had a zombie mode, I think.
Yeah.
It might have
Was it
been
Call
Call
of
of Duty.
Everyone is a zombie mode now.
I think Call of Duty made it popular for the
Fair.
current shooter.
But it wasn't so much the zombie mode. It was literally a zombie mode where they never stopped coming. It was just how far up could you...
Right, like a ladder system. Like how high up could
How
you get?
long
How many
did you
waves could
last?
survive?
Yeah. And that I always love doing. I love seeing
I
that
wonder if
kind
they
of
do
thing.
that with Horde mode.
Yeah.
Because we mentioned the lore, that's the last stand against the apocalyptic event, and you're supposed to lose. By lore design, you're supposed to lose. So by design, do they just make it harder, give you a leaderboard, who gets to the highest level possible until
I think
it
that's
just
what's it.
murders you?
Yeah.
I think that's it.
Makes sense.
I know it's kind of off topic since we're talking Horde mode. We really should be talking Castle Siege. But no, the only issue I have with that, and I'll kind of end our Horde mode on that, is everything else in APOC is very short games-ish. If your game can go over and over and over again until you essentially die, are we going to have people who are in there for 5, 6, 8 hours just because they're really good at what they do?
That means they just tweak the numbers so that the game's destined to die around an hour or whatever.
I mean, eventually they could at like a 45-minute mark, a boss will come who one shot hits you every time. There's no way to survive it. And once you get to him, that's it. But eventually, it's kind of one of those things when I see it, like if anyone ever remember the old game Flappy Bird, they had the annoying... I loved it. It's okay. The leaderboard essentially maxed out on the counter, the 9999999.
Yeah.
So there wasn't really a leaderboard because it's like, well, who did it? You know, it never moved at that point. Once you hit the 99999, that was it. Anyway, I hope they don't go that way. I would like to see it go longer. Anyway, moving on to some of the mechanics. Attacking and defending will each have different victory conditions. Attacking team requires the taking of a defending team's relic, which is the final control point, while the defending team has to run out the clock while protecting their relic. It's I mean, what is a Temple of the Ancients and like it's a common.
There's
defense.
a million games built like this.
Yeah. The thing that I really like is, like you were mentioning, the control points. Let's talk how these things are going to work a little bit. The control points actually, they have several that are on the outside of the walls, forcing defenders to go out and defend.
That is amazing. Because why would a defender want to leave his walls? You've got this massive castle with these thick walls and all these ballistas. Why would you want to leave? No, now we're giving you an incentive to leave. Because capturing offensive control points lowers or increases the respawn rate, right? Gives you a buff, add or decreases the time necessary to win your condition. It encourages you to send, who knows, 10, 15, 20, 30 people out and attack this point. And then the attacking team has to go and defend that point. It adds a level of depth of gameplay that I didn't expect the developers even think about. That's so cool.
Right. I like how they're offering different types of siege weaponry, which you should. But the attackers and defenders will get two different types. The defenders on the wall will have pre-placements of ballistae. Is what they're called. Or ballista, if you really want to just bastardize the word. They'll be fixed along the towers, and they also get movable traps. I love traps.
You notice that some of the traps are CC?
Yes.
Yeah.
Some of them are crowd control traps. That's fascinating.
Oh, yeah. I'm wondering if they'll do a little bit of both, or if you get to... I hope they let you do multiple. Like, plain defend, if it does a little bit of everything, but I would like the option of being able to do one or the other, so you can make a decision of, do I want to damage or do I want to CC? Because CC is so powerful. Oh, it's amazing. As long as you have a team who knows how to utilize it correctly.
Is it a slow? Is it a freeze? Is it an incapacitate? Is it a stun? Like, there's different kinds of CC, right? With different levels of power.
Right.
I'll have to wait and see.
The trebuchets for the attacking side will be outside the range of the player walls, but within range of the ballistae. So you have the ballistae on the wall, and they can attack the trebuchets, but the casters and stuff can't. So that actually adds an additional level of responsibility on the defender side to protect their siege encampments.
Where did I read it? There was a part of that sentence. The trebuchet's range will be long enough to reach the enemy ballista from their initial placement points, which leads me to believe that as an engineer, if this thing's busted up, I can pull it out of range and repair the damn thing.
Do you think they're actually gonna? I don't think they're gonna let us move the siege.
It says initial placement points. That's all. That's the only information we have on that particular topic. Initial placement points. Maybe we can move them.
I think an engineer may be able to repair. I
Yeah,
don't
that's
think
part
they're
of
going to
how I
be able
imagine.
to move them if they're broken.
What if you take the first layer of wall and your trebuchet's out of range of a second layer of wall, and they design it so that maybe you can push them forward? Who knows? We'll have to wait and see.
Well, you would have to move the battering ram. Like,
Yep. So if you can move a battering ram, why can't I move a trebuchet with a bunch of people?
Need a bunch of people, right?
Yeah, maybe it takes 4 people to push the trebuchet out of the way.
Is 4 really a bunch of people to you? Does anyone
Fine,
remember
a
the
dozen.
DOAC days where it took 8
Fine.
people just to move? Like, you literally had to have 8 people to move a battering ram. Like, it wouldn't move if you had less than 8 people. Like, it just wouldn't move. It was great. So of course you have that. I like how it does encourage even defenders to go out and maybe try to take out trebuchet to protect their ballista.
Because they're out of range of spells and arrows, right? So you have to actually leave the walls to go and get them if you don't want to ballista them. You're right.
Yep.
Interesting.
I do
Well,
like that.
Quick question. So will the defenders have any of this?
Defenders have the ballistae and the traps.
Got it.
They have 2. The attackers have trebuchets and battering rams. Those are their 2 siege engines. The one note that I do have here for the defending side is that all the siege is destructible by the attackers. I'm assuming that would mean that defenders, if they're able to, can go out and destroy the attacker's siege.
Else, why do you need engineers aside from some armor and stuff on the attacking side, right?
Right.
Catfall.
Catfall.
Portable catfall.
Oh yeah.
The other key side that actually really does tie into how this works from a mechanic side is if a defender actually captures an attacker's control point, because there'll be different control points, it actually decreases the total time left on the map counter, increases the attacker's respawn time, which we'll get into the respawn time, how that works, and also provides a temporary morale buff for the defenders. Reversely, if the attackers take a defender's spot, they get an increase in time, increasing the defender's team respawn, and they gain the morale buff. So controlling these control points is very, very important. And
Now it does say too that defenders will be able to teleport to the taken points.
Yep, there it
right?
is.
Yeah.
Will attackers also be able to do that?
I didn't read that. I was
I
curious about
didn't
that
see
myself.
that, so but they call it out specifically.
well, it's actually funny that you say that. Let's actually talk about those inconsistencies in the verbiage, because earlier I mentioned how it said that siege engines are destructible by attackers. Defenders,
It doesn't mention.
maybe that's their unique mechanic. Attackers have the ability to destroy siege equipment. Defenders have the ability to teleport when they take stuff.
Oh,
It'll be interesting. Yeah, how they
And push the fight
divulge all this
back.
out.
So
Yep.
the question is, did they forget to mention the reverse in the notes, or like you said, is that a tactical thing, a tactical decision to design it that way?
Or hadn't they thought about it yet?
Oh, they haven't done it.
Or they haven't thought it may have well just been a slip up, but I'm curious about that. The only problem I have with that is, one, if Siege is not able to be destroying any siege equipment of attackers, that just means they have to go up and essentially control the areas. I'm assuming most Siege will be right around a control point and prevent the attackers from using it. But I guess I guess if you're able to actually, that makes sense. I can see it now as I'm talking about it. It makes more sense. I'm like, what about a battering ram? If that's destroyed, then the guys can't get through the wall at all. But I'm assuming what's going to happen is while you're driving it, it saves its position.
Or it is allowed to be destroyed and then withdrawn and then repaired by engineers and sent back in again.
Yeah.
Or you have spares.
Or you have spares, multiple, right? And you
Okay.
can cycle them and repair the broken ones and bring in new ones. There's so many ways they can do this.
Maybe it's like the payload in Overwatch where one spawns and just slowly moves towards the wall, and if it's destroyed, it just spawns again at the beginning and starts moving slowly towards the wall.
No, they're probably gonna. Well, yeah, yes to that, but they're probably gonna force players to use the battering ram and be unable to do anything else other than push the battering ram. I would imagine.
I would agree with
you'd
that.
think so. Yeah,
I
you'd think
imagine.
so.
I don't think at this point they're gonna have any level of control of the siege equipment.
That's actually a good question. Are players going to be using these trebuchets and ballistas? Or are they firing automatically? I'd hope the players will be using them.
I think they're going to be using them.
I hope so.
I think so.
Yeah,
I would
I
hope so. That's part of the fun, is to be able to do it.
Yeah, imagine getting into a trebuchet and firing rocks and stuff.
Yeah.
Great.
I know they talked about control points, and this is something that's actually really interesting, and I will go over this. To actually capture a control point, you have to channel an ability. Only one person needs to do it. It's not just standing like with your horde on top of it, like most capture the hill type games are. You have to channel. But they mentioned that the channel is only interruptible by death.
Which means I'm hoping as somebody trying to defend that point, there's an animation that lets you know that person is channeling. Kill that person. Defend this person. Kill that person.
The one thing, though, that is interesting, and for a shorter end of a game, these games are only supposed to be about 30 minutes, give or take, is that if anyone gets on there and channels, it saves that progress.
Yeah, they mentioned the possibility of checkpoints, like in Overwatch, right? If you capture the point up to about a third, it'll save that progress. It won't save 25%, but it'll save a third, depending on where they put their checkpoints on the progress.
Right.
See, I'm not sure if I like the only by death part.
You thinking like interrupt damage? There's a lot of AoE.
Yeah,
from what we're seeing.
with like bash, right? You should be able to bash them to interrupt them. But again, this is the way they're laying it out, so we'll see how it works. But
And maybe they
interesting to see
will
how it
allow
works.
crowd control to stop it, like a stun of sorts, right? maybe through testing they'll decide on that.
Right. Let's move on to probably the bigger discussion. I'm going to put an image up here on the screen. Oh, yeah. Fun times. Class kits. All right.
Can't wait.
Okay. Now, let's go ahead. I'm going to go through some of this stuff right off the bat just so we can get it out of the way. But because we're going to jump into actual discussing these class builds.
Mm-hmm.
When you enter a match, you're going to be able to see each class that's represented. Okay, to help plan. So everyone, you'll see the numbers, again, an awful lot like an Overwatch game. You're seeing who's taking what. You'll be able to lock your choice in, or if you don't lock it in, it'll auto-assign you to the least selected class.
Yep.
Each class has its own health and armor values, which is nice because then you have the tanky characters having higher health and armor values than the healers. And we'll go back into some of the other stuff. Let's see. Infinite lives upon death. Whenever you die, you actually go back and have a shared team respawn timer. That's
kind of like a battleground in World of Warcraft, right? A little spawn graveyard point.
Exact same thing. Yeah.
Let's talk about that before we actually get into the classes. How does that work for everybody? Does that actually sound like a fun mechanic? Like the whole thing I just discussed up until this point.
It reminds you of Battlefront, reminds you of World of Warcraft, reminds you of a bunch of things where pick a number, every 30 seconds, there's a wave of respawns. And that'll help the design team to control how quickly reinforcements can get back to the attacking and defending sides. They can make it respawn every 30 seconds. They can make it respawn every minute. They can tweak that number. And
it will be tweaked by controlling capture points because it increases or decreases your respawn time.
Exactly.
So if there's, let's say it's 30 seconds. 30 seconds. And each side has 5 control points. Each one may add an extra 5 seconds.
Yeah. Or 10 seconds.
Or 10 seconds, yeah.
There's a lot they can do with this.
Well, and I guess it would really depend. I mean, as you're pushing forward, that's how a game starts ending it. Like if defenders are able to go out and attack the attacking positions and take them, you're killing the attackers. They're getting sent back to the respawn time, and each one you take, they're now dying and taking longer. You can make a mad rush to end the game.
Because generally in these types of games, the attacking team has the crappy disadvantage of having their respawn point way back outside the castle, and they're trying to march their way into the castle. So without that mechanic of increasing their spawn rate and making them respawn slower, these games may never win in the attacking side's favor.
Right.
So look at the last line, right, where infinite lives and death when you join a shared team respawn. So exactly what does that mean? If it's a 30-second timer and I die first, not unusual, I die first, and Alpha dies last, does he have 30 seconds or does he have the part of my 30 seconds?
It depends if you miss your window.
Depends on the window.
World of Warcraft, how they did it, and most other games do it, you have from the lore perspective, they had a spirit healer who's just sitting there casting, and it took 30 seconds to cast. There's been times where I've died, and it's like, resurrection in 3 seconds. I'm like, yes, I made it.
Right there, yeah.
And then other times it's like 29 seconds. I'm like, oh, it just happened.
Yeah, most often the clock just keeps rocking, and if you're lucky, you're lucky, and if you're not, you're not.
Yeah, and she'll cast the heal spell regardless if anyone's there or not. It's every 30 seconds they do a heal, and if you just so happen to be dead at the time that the resurrect goes out, boom.
There you go.
You're up.
I'm imagining situations where the attacking team is deep in the castle, and they're about to take the reliquary, but all of a sudden the respawn goes and 50 people spawn and they surge out and they go like, I can't wait to play this game.
Oh, that will totally happen, and that's the exciting part. You know, the defense is right at the end, but at the same time, could you imagine being dead and watching the timer? It's like 5 seconds, 4, 3, and the defenders take one. 15, 14.
Yeah,
that would get disheartening, but yeah.
I mean, because the timer will go up, so that'll be fun.
Hearing you guys talking about it, it sounds so much like Star Wars: The Old Republic in the way that they had their battleground set up. At least what the hell was it?
Interesting.
It was this one specific map where it's like you had to get to the center, and it had choke points, the exact same kind of spawn mechanic and everything like that. And as a defender, you'd actually have to prevent the attacking team from placing the bombs on the door to, blow up the door. It sounds very similar to that, and like a mix between Alterac Valley as well, too. But the interesting thing is those matches in Star Wars: The Old Republic lasted I think it was like 20 minutes. Each side got like 10 minutes or something like that. Whereas the Altaric Valley ones could last hours if you
The
were
original ones, I remember those.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It seems to be a pretty common thing. I love this style. Last game that honestly I've been playing, and of course, if you follow anything we do here at the Dungeon Crawler Network over at dungeoncrawlernetwork.com, nice plug. The show we've been running the longest is Tales of Tamriel, and they had their Cyrodiil PvP, and taking that final keep when you're like pushing through to take the final capture point, because at that point every defender is off the walls because there's no one outside anymore. Why do you need to be? They're all in that center room. You just like see the door open and there's like 100 enemies just sitting on the flag, and you're like, well, we're pushing through.
I can't wait.
I love that style. It's so much fun, and it's so epic just to see arrows and magic being flown. Your crazy melee guys trying to like jump in the middle and kill everyone who's a caster. Yeah, it's a good time. Let's go ahead and start talking about classes. I think this will be a lot of fun as well. As you can see on the image we have, they've split up the 6 class kits into warrior class or tank class, a DPS class, and the support classes. Each one fits those roles in that trinity that they keep talking about. We have the tank, the DPS, and a support type class. Let's do DPS first, because that's the notes that I have in the order. The 2 DPS classes that we are going to have is Archwizard and Hawkeye, and the Archwizard is focused on AoE damage. Lots of AoEs. I mean, it's a wizard, so there you go. They have teleports, a flamethrower cone, which is a channel type thing. That's going to be fun.
Right in the doorway.
Yep. And one thing they did note during the live stream, which is cool, is this is an important aspect to tweak numbers for the MMORPG to determine how magic damage affects various classes and their armor.
Right. I forgot
And
about
I
that.
limited how much they do affect.
Right. And they did mention that we want magic to do more damage to armor. Hawkeye, for instance, has certain skills that bypass armor. It's like a piercing type thing.
Oh yeah, you'd think they would, right?
This is one thing I really like. The Hawkeye has a grappling hook to be able to scale walls.
Widowmaker.
That's what you want a Hawkeye to do, right? You're
And
sitting
maybe
up
not
top.
even just scale the walls. What if there's terrain outside the walls, the attackers that the Hawkeyes get on top of and have better vantage points and better lines of sight?
That's right. And you start picking off the officers.
Right. Yeah, and the idea behind both of these is each one does something a little different. You have the big AoE caster, which is the Archwizard, and then you have the more direct damage caster, which is, or not caster, but DPS, which is the Hawkeye, which will have their own unique ways. This is probably the closest you'll get to in APOC until they release more class kits towards a rogue, or at least the old DOAC rogue where you could climb walls. Yeah.
A lot of the ranger as well, because their weapons is the short bow and the long bow. And I wonder if they're going to maintain the battle royale thing, have the short bow be hit scan but less damage, and the long bow be projectile but more damage. I wonder if they'll maintain that through APOC.
That would be interesting.
Because each class has 2 weapons and 5 abilities, right? And for example, the ranger is short bow, long bow. So I wonder if they're going to keep that. We're going to wait and see.
I would assume you would have to have some sort of close range and long range weapon. I can't.
Not for the ranger. Short bow,
Maybe.
long bow. That's his weapons.
Maybe.
Yeah, that's
What if one of his abilities is a way of disengaging, slowing the opponent and disengaging?
yeah.
He's a sniper.
He's a sniper.
I
It's
guess.
not his job to get into melee. If you want to be in melee, play one of the melee classes.
If you're in melee, you're dead. You're doing it wrong.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. All right. Fair enough. I just, I don't know. I even as a ranged type player, I'm always like, I need to have some sort of.
For sure. In an MMORPG, for sure. However, in this game mode, this is the way they're designing it.
I just find it
My
weird
favorite
that.
2 classes.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I'm an upfront kind of guy. Even from this right off the bat, I could say I'm probably going to play Weapon Master or Guardian.
What, you mean the spin to win, halberd, 2-handed weapon, leap into combat, weapon master? No, not you.
That's him.
Maybe.
That's him.
That does sound an awful lot like me. I mean,
Leap into combat, two-handed weapon, spin to win.
Figure it out later. Red stuff doesn't matter. Just go.
if you've
such a-
ever watched any of our streams when I played Imperial City, people are like, "Where'd Ag go?" He's already halfway down that tunnel chasing somebody with his
Yeah.
big two-hander out.
Pretty much, yeah.
That's,
So it looks like the only two classes that, or engineer and high priest, are the only ones that can alternate between range and melee.
Seems
I think
like
that's
it, yeah.
by design.
I think so. The warriors are all up in your face. DPS are all range, and the support are both.
And I imagine their damage is not nearly as good as the other classes because it's their job to support and maybe deal damage if there's nothing to support at the time.
right. Interesting. Talk about warrior classes because these are my bread and butter. I love them. The Guardian will have a big health pool. I'm curious how big of a health pool. When you see a Guardian, well, I mean, really,
Yeah, how big?
how big of is it something when you see a Guardian, you're like, crud. You know, you need a couple people. They may not
You're
be
gonna
able to kill
pumping
you.
arrows into that damn thing because it's just not going to go down.
You know what's pretty interesting? Did you guys so try this out in the battle royale when you actually go in?
Okay.
Collision. I didn't realize how extensive the collision was, but I was using in that lobby before you go in. I was actually blocking doors with my character and just standing there, just as a test, and nobody could actually get around me as I was
That's
doing
right.
that. And so, if it works like that, the same way, and I have no doubt that it will, the tanks are going to have the Guardians are going to have a really important role in standing there and soaking up damage. And even with the sword and shield in the battle royale, it doesn't really fit in the battle royale, but you definitely soak up more damage when you're using the ability.
If
as
the
opposed to
door
not.
goes down, the Guardians step up.
They
Yeah,
be the
Hold
door.
the door.
Yep.
The
They
Hodor.
become the- Hey,
Hodor.
Hodor.
That's it. Just reminded me I was bored today at work. I know it's off topic, but it's funny. It was a Game of Thrones meme where it's like every lady needs to find a guy who will hold the door for him. It showed Hodor. It cracked me up. Sorry. Anyway,
April 14th. April 14th.
indeed.
Next season.
I'm excited. Anyway, big health pool and focuses on moving people out of the way. Collision and crowd control abilities. I'm really hoping that one of the shield abilities is literally like a pushback where you literally hit and it's like an AoE cone that knocks people back.
From the live stream, did I hear something along the lines of a similar projected shield ability similar to Reinhardt from Overwatch? Because I heard chat screaming Reinhardt like crazy. I wasn't paying very close attention. Does the Guardian have something like that? Some sort of projected shield blocking ability of sorts? I can't remember. Does anyone remember?
The only thing that I had for the Guardian was AoE pull, as well as a mobile shield that they could deploy.
No,
That might have been it right there.
yeah,
Yeah.
I could see that. Mobile shield allows tack. I mean, the mobile shield's neat, but I'd like to see all the abilities because being able to absorb damage is one thing, but being able to control a battlefield is another. Being
Yeah, what
able
if they
to
have a knockdown earthquake type effect?
Yeah.
Right? An AoE crowd control ability.
I mean, that would be great, having the shield wall up, because we've already seen the shield wall happen. You notice I said shield wall a bunch of times. Happen in the Battle Royale. And that, I love that Defender shield in the Battle Royale. But having the ability to literally do like a shield slam and anyone in front of you gets knocked, like a CC, they get knocked back and maybe knocked over, a knockdown. That would be beautiful.
That'd be great. Because you want to make sure all the classes are compelling and fun to play. Or else you get the situation where nobody picks that class and you have to auto-fill and you're out of balance. So yeah, give the tank some really cool abilities. Give the healers something to shoot at and something to do so they're not always healing.
Right.
Make sure it's fun for everyone.
Absolutely. And tanks in PvP have always, in other games, have always kind of
Suffer.
been, they suffer because it's like half the stuff you do is worthless. If you can make tanks be the CC kings, tanks will be back and in a big way.
And then rogue players will complain that they can't kill the tank that sees them better than they do.
Yeah. I can't
Well, that's
stun
not their
lock the
job.
tank. It
They
bashes
should be doing
me.
something else, right?
Yeah.
I can't backstab
That's for the
lock.
MMO,
He
though.
shield slams me.
That's for the MMO though. That's not for this mode.
I don't know. I think that'd be really awesome to
It'd be
have.
fun for this mode. It'd be great.
Yeah. Anyway, so that's going to be a lot of fun. So they can absorb damage, and then it explodes outwards to deal damage. So they can absorb the damage, and then exploded outwards.
Don't shoot your siege weapons at the shield wall.
Otherwise, it's going out. It's
Bad
going
times.
out. Anyway, Weapon Masters, aka Spin to Win. They are your interrupters. They disrupt things. They have leap skills and a ground pound AoE.
Ground pound.
Ground pound.
Is that the knockdown AoE we've been talking about? Or is that just AoE damage?
Another
I
one.
wonder. Or another one.
It could be. Really could be. Anyway, let's talk about the final thing, the support classes. This is another thing that was really neat. Each support class, you need a little bit of both because health and stamina are restored by the High Priest, whereas armor and mana are restored by the Engineer.
And I don't remember them mentioning stamina or magic in the live stream, but I remember reading it here in this blog post. So now we know the mage just can't cast forever. It's going to have mana, and it's going to need the engineer to give him some mana. Same with the healer. It can't just heal forever. It's going to have mana. Melee classes might have stamina for their attacks and resources being restored by the engineer, right? The stamina? No, the healer to stamina. The healer to stamina.
Healer to
So the
stamina.
healer restores
Stamina,
that.
yeah.
So,
Healer to stamina.
yeah, these support classes are far more important than just straight up healing and fixing stuff.
Right.
Yeah. Man, there doesn't seem to be any throwaway classes, which is a great thing.
Yes.
So if you end up getting stuck with somebody who, for some reason, just running around as an engineer with their chickens or with their head cut off, then you don't have mana, and your guys can't do their job. And
Luckily, though, it is 100 versus 100. Hopefully, you do have about half dozen to a dozen engineers. You know what I mean?
that's
Well,
true.
You would have to, I would imagine, because the engineer is the
Six
only
classes.
one who can. Well, I have in my notes that they focus on siege weapons. So maybe they're the only ones who can fix them if they break.
I wonder if they're the other ones that can operate them. That would give you a really fun incentive to play the engineer. If they're the other ones that know how to operate the machinery.
I mean, it would give them a niche that if you didn't have, I don't know if you would want. My only issue with that is if no one plays them, and we've already talked about this earlier, that because as of this point,
Here we go.
as of this point, you're not going to be able to change classes when you're in a game.
The stupidest decision I can, I'm so trying to hold my patience with this decision because they said right in the blog post that they're testing it so they can change their decision. But right now, I can't see a world where that's even remotely fun or fair to not allow us to adjust our numbers based off of the situation.
I'm curious, why?
Because if there's a situation, you have two portions of the wall down and you're thick in the melee and you're like, crap, melee people are dying like crazy. I'm stuck as a ranger. I would love to switch to a healer next time I die to provide those melee people with some backup and want to change your classes based off the in-game situations, giving you the freedom to do so. But if in the beginning you didn't have enough healers queue up, and you've only got like 8 or 9 as opposed to the 14 or 15 you might want, you're not allowed to switch to support those guys. It removes choice. It removes options from the players participating in the game, and that feels unfun to have those choices removed from you.
Yeah, but it's just you being bad at preparing for a battle. Sorry.
Could be.
I mean,
Now,
a lot. It
if
takes.
you're queuing up with a full 100-man pre-made, then yeah, it's absolutely your fault for someone in your 100-man Discord chat pre-made to not pick the right classes. But in
Versus
a
the
pickup
farmer
group-
conscript that you pulled out of the field and enlisted in your army and said, by the way, hold this pike. And
By the
they're
way, you're an engineer.
hold
Fix
him.
this thing.
fix this thing.
Yeah.
My
I don't think you should
lord.
be able to change classes. Yeah,
Sorry?
yeah. Sorry, I was saying I don't think you should be able to change classes.
think so either.
What I do think that they should allow you to do, however, is in that initial lobby, I think you should have the option with most of these games of deciding what class you want until you hit that whatever the split that is required by the game, and then you go in game. In other words, you can plan out your class beforehand so that you're not fully randomly just thrown in.
It did say that when you're selecting your class, you already shows you on the screen how many of this, how many of this, how many of this are there. But
Yeah,
if everybody's like,
That
man,
will
I just
help.
want a DPS, I don't want to heal, I don't want to fix stuff, and you have you're underrepresented in that.
Yeah, but you don't start until you get to a level, right?
No.
Then
So
you're
then
just
now
gonna
the
start
game
anyway?
designers are enforcing minimum requirements to your balance. Is
I
that
think
fun?
it should.
Well, not
For
if you
balance,
get something
sure.
that you really don't know how to play. I don't think it. Maybe what would be kind of neat at that point is, like you said, they lock at a certain point. Well, see, no, that wouldn't even make sense because if you had a full 100-man group and you specialize in having 98 weapon masters and 1 engineer. I don't know why you would do that, but let's just say you did. If
They
you
did
want
say they don't want to stop you if everyone wants to play engineer. That's right in this blog post. If everyone wants to play engineer, we're not
Yeah.
going to stop you. However, then they warn you that's not a very smart idea.
yeah,
I
it
don't
should
have
be.
any problem with that. I don't have any problem with that. I do have a problem though with in the middle of a match, let's just say you're fighting against a balanced group or whatever the group may be, and all of a sudden you have that 98 weapon master thing. They're all rushing you at a critical point in the match, and then they all switch to something else, and it becomes almost a meta in of itself.
This is one of those situations where I don't want to punish the majority to stop the minority. The coordination to convince 98 people to switch to Blade Master, who are probably pickup group randoms, is, if it happens, good job. You somehow pulled off convincing 98 people to be Blade Master.
I mean, the reason why I don't like it, and I brought this up before, I think the last thing this game needs is to be compared to Overwatch when it's already compared to Fortnite. And the ability to change like that makes this game pretty much just like every other team shooter in the world.
But the main difference, Team Fortress 2 had class switching in the respawn room. It was 12 people versus 12 people, 16 versus 16 at the most, and that was hectic as crazy. Overwatch is 6v6. This is 100 versus 100, where your class balance it can make or break you if you don't have enough of something.
And it should.
Especially integral.
And it should. If you
But now
what?
we're punishing the individual player who queued up solo, who thinks, man, if I could just switch to a healer, I could maybe change the course of this battle. If I could switch to a ranged DPS and snipe those stupid spellcasters up there, I could change the course of
What's
this
the
battle.
difference between if you had a group who's like, you had 25 healers, they all sign in and they're AFK? Like,
you can't control everything.
Right, you can't. You can't control everything, so why does it matter? Like,
I think
if you're committed to this, go.
Yeah, and I do think in those scenarios that you brought up, Crojack, that's where communication with your team comes in. Rather than you just saying it, it's like, hey, archers, get on that guy on that rampart. Healers, come over here, we're getting wasted over here. Rather than, I'll switch and do it myself.
I don't know if anyone else has been this, but does anyone remember Ultric Valley, where you always had like that 5-minute start, and every once in a while you get in a game where a guy had all of his macros in place, and the second you got in, he's hitting his macros. It's like, okay, so-and-so go here.
Group 2, Group 3, you're going to Gal. We're going to rush this. Yeah, I remember those.
I mean, that's even before pre-mades, and the thing is, when people tended to follow those against an unorganized team, it showed. Even though they were randoms, they had direction versus the leaderless side. So if you have someone in the pre-game telling people, and that's the one thing, if they have a pre-game area where you're selecting, it shouldn't just be a UI. There should be a team chat going by.
There should be a chat.
Yeah.
So you can...
Guys, I think we need more engineers. Guys, I think we need more healers or whatever.
Yeah. If you're right, I will concede the point that you should be able to switch classes if when you sign in you get the image that you see here on the screen and you just pick the flag and then you're in the game. Yeah, other than the pie chart showing. But if there's a team chat, there's no excuse that someone in team chat could be like, guys, we have way too many weapon masters. We need more engineers.
The beautiful thing, down the road they mentioned the ability to queue up with this particular game mode with a guild of 20 people, right? And within your guild, you can be smart enough and have your balance smart enough that you can make a massive impact on the game. But at first, it's just going to be random queues, maybe 4 people, maybe a 4-man squad queue. Being unable to switch to adjust on the fly if you need more of this, more of that, less of this, less of that, it feels bad. It's one of those feel bad mechanics. Much like I hate the Bone Smashers thing that makes you want to hold still and get sniped from halfway across the map. It feels bad.
Right? I mean, that's do I want to close the gap and smash the guy in the face before he pulls out his longbow miasma and shoots me
and
dead
take all
center
this damage? Or do I hold still and try and snipe him and then he charges back at me? Or does a third person over there snipe me because I'm not moving? I hate the Bone Smasher.
I think the one thing, if this is supposed to be a test for the MMORPG, when castle sieges happen, lock them in. Because guess what? If you're a guild that just isn't very balanced, you're going to have to learn to play with your unbalanced team. And that's what this provides. Yes, I get it's random, but...
If they had said they were going to put a ceiling on the numbers of classes... Because they did say if you don't pick, you're being suggested to the lowest number.
Yeah.
If they put a cap and said no more than 20 Blade Masters, no more than 20 of this, then people eventually, by not being in fast enough, will be forced to play classes they wouldn't know, and they'll be balanced. But they're not doing that.
Unless
letting you go
because they're
98
forced
blade
to play
masters
an
if you want.
engineer and they don't want to play an engineer, so they AFK. Or they
Yep.
play the engineer so poorly, they might as well have been AFK.
Yeah.
And then you're unable to switch to engineer to make up for his lack.
Yeah.
It's that's why they're debating it. That's why right now they're leaning to not allowing you to switch mid-fight, but they're talking about it because there's pros and cons doing it either way.
Did they say they were going to have chat, by the way, or not voice chat? Because I think they
Text
said that they would. Yeah, text chat specifically.
Could you imagine 100-person voice chat in Siege?
Yeah, that's what's scaring me. I mean, if they don't have a text chat, I don't know how people are going to communicate
They
with
have
one
to.
another within it. Yeah,
You know that?
Voice, please.
Oh, and for those of you saying like, and we're going to get into this last topic because we're already running over time here. What will be different in the MMORPG? Text chat, from a testing perspective, they need to add that in there because they're going to be testing their text, their communication server. Text servers are generally separate from game servers. I don't know if you guys knew that or not, but generally, text servers are often tied with the login servers. They actually share a general architecture. It's kind of like when you split a network, you have your domain controllers, file server, whatever. They're normally split. You can often tell a server's going to go down when your chat stops functioning because then no one can log in anymore.
Now that you mention that, that's actually pretty true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If your text is not working in game anymore, no one else can log in because they're often tied together. I don't know why it's set up that way, but that's often how it's done. So I'm hoping that they add the text chat because that's just one more thing that we can point to as, yeah, this is a legit test for the MMORPG because look, they're trying to get their text server, their communication server working correctly. Plus, anyway, finally, before we wrap this up, this, of course, is everything that's happening within APOC, but there are going to be some big things different in the MMO. I'm excited. Some of the notes I have here is, while this is pretty much set in stone, to be frank, I mean, everything is more or less set in stone. When we actually get into the game, not everything is going to be so easily cut and dry and fair because you're going to have node influences on how defensive positions are placed. Maybe if your node isn't leveled up enough, you never built that watchtower. And now
But that watchtower is a weaker watchtower, not nearly as armored or as how much damage, right?
too small, can't hold a ballista.
Yeah,
You know?
could be.
Yeah. The crafting and deployment of custom siege engines, and of course, the Mac Daddy of them all, the summoning of siege monsters. Let's
That's
go,
gonna
guys.
be so cool.
Let's talk about
That'd
this.
be awesome.
It's
Yeah,
actually
it adds
awesome.
the MMO element to this little mini game. Right now, what we're testing, it's a game. It's a little mini game. It takes half an hour. It's done. Who says a node siege is going to take 35 minutes? I highly doubt it's going to take only 35 minutes. A node siege or a castle siege in the MMO is going to take a while. It's going to cost resources worth in-game gold currency. I can't wait. I keep saying that. I can't wait.
The only thing I hope for that is they have that I think this week. They take the respawn of back to where you away from the battle. Right.
Yeah, so wherever if they do the graveyard respawn system in this MMO, make sure those graveyards are pretty darn far away, or all the way back to
Absolutely.
the nearest allied town, friendly town.
Absolutely, because you don't want to have them. You kill
A
it.
constant
So,
wave.
yeah, it's constant flow because then the defenders are never going to make it.
Mhm.
'Cause it's the attackers are going to keep coming. The defenders can take them off as much as you want. They're coming right back in.
Yeah.
And see, and this is also where I said about I still believe they're going to do castle sieges in a large instance.
You still think they're going to try and
I
instance
still
it?
think they're going to try to.
They don't want to, but my God, it'll help their servers out if they do.
Yeah, it will.
Because we were talking earlier. I saw chat talk about this. What game, siege game, hasn't had lag? All of them.
All of them.
Yeah.
And yes, server technology has come a long way and stuff, but graphically more
Yeah.
intensive. Just I don't know.
Because otherwise, the only way you could really do it is when you have people enlisted in the siege. No one else who comes in can participate, which means they're non-combatants, which I don't like that because then you can have non-combatants literally standing on the flag and then like hiding. I have a 3,000 person guild. I can only have 100. Well, get all 3,000 to stand in the castle. You can't see the enemy now. You know, there's ways that can be exploited by doing that, and I don't like that.
Yeah.
The other thing is, like, how do you limit people? Well, maybe they can only die so many times, and then they become non-combatants. In which case, then, again, you have the issue of, well, I'm just going to stand on the flag or do my happy dance and then, you know, disrupt the battlefield. And, you know.
No matter what you do, people find a way around it.
Yeah.
Oh, hell yeah.
That's the difficulty of these types of situations. No matter what you set up, there's going to be people who find a way around it and, quote unquote, exploit it. The question is it really an exploit? Or are they being smart enough to figure out, go around your rules?
Yeah, I almost think, I think I agree with Aggelos. I think you have to instance it.
You might have to.
Yeah.
It's easier to protect against those kinds of creative use of game mechanic things.
That's one creative use. There you go.
Indeed. Anyway, guys, that's going to be the end of this episode. We were actually a little over time, but it's a lot of fun to talk about this. I want to thank all my amazing co-hosts. We got Stormslord of Digital Piper Studios. Check him out in the description below with all of his links. Of course, we got Alpha Soul. He streams, he does videos, all sorts of stuff like that at _alpha_soul. And of course, Crowjack does a little bit of everything, even Snapchats you at night. That's right.
I do not.
Early morning.
Fine.
Indeed. Anyway, thank you so much, guys, for watching. If you want to follow everything we do over at DungeonCrawlerNetwork.com, there you can find links to all of our social media, including Twitch, YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook. You can be sure to check out our Patreon program, patreon.com/DungeonCrawlerNetwork. If you want to help support the show, you can also help support us by leaving us a 5-star review on iTunes so people know that we are a real podcast, that we say real words, and sometimes they matter. That's right. Thank you so much for joining us on this episode of From the Ashes, and we'll see you next time. See you later, everybody.